During Advent, the Church tells the story of the birth of John the Baptist, the forerunner or the herald of Jesus Christ. St. Francis of Assisi was also a herald of Jesus. And the birth of St. Francis of Assisi and the birth of John the Baptist shared much in common. In this video, I'll tell you the story of the birth of St. Francis, and in the next video, the story of the birth of John the Baptist. Have fun as you compare their two births and see the similarities between them. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. This is the story about the birth of a child. His mother named him after that man sent from God, but his father? His father named him after the country that made the family rich. Pica Bernardone was a fair and beautiful French woman, the daughter of a cloth merchant from Picardy, France. Pietro Bernardone was a dark and hot-blooded Italian cloth merchant from Assisi, Italy. The two met one year at the fair in Champagne, France, where Pica had accompanied her father, and Pietro had gone to find some new cloth for his shop. Pica caught Pietro's eyes. Oh, sparks flew between them. The two courted and were wed. And Pietro brought Pica back to his shop in Assisi, Italy. The fair in Champagne, France came around again. Pietro was preparing to leave for the fair, but Pica was staying home. Tears filled Pica's eyes as Pietro packed his last bag. Oh, Pietro, please don't go. The baby will be born before you return. Pietro turned and looked at his wife. The bulge in her belly was getting bigger every day. Pietro knew how much Pica wanted him there for the birth of their child. Oh, but business in the cloth shop had slacked off a bit lately, and Pietro was hoping to find some new patterns and designs to lure the nobles of Assisi into his shop again. Oh, Pica, I will return as soon as the fair is over. I'll be back as quick as I can. Pietro gave Pica a hug, took his bag and slung it over the broad back of the black stallion, and mounted the beautiful horse. Pica reached up her hand. Pietro smiled, kissed her hand, and then turned the horse and started down the path to take the Via Francesca, the French road, and meet the other merchants he was traveling with. The days and weeks passed. Pica's belly grew so big she thought it would burst. The day came for the child's birth, and that passed too. Pica's friends and neighbors whispered together. You see how big Pica is? She's way past due. Why hasn't the baby been born yet? Pica felt the baby kick in her belly, and she too wondered when this child would be born. One night, after the evening meal, there was a knock at the door of the Bernardone house. Pica opened the door, and there stood a little old man gazing at her huge belly. "You are way past due," he said. Oh, Pika was surprised. She didn't know the man. "You will not give birth except in a stable, like the Blessed Mother of our Lord." "Who are you, and how do you know me?" asked Pika. But the man disappeared quickly into the night. The next morning, Pika went into labor, and her labor was long and hard, and still the child refused to be born. Pika had told the women assisting her with the birth about the mysterious visitor and his strange message about the child. The women saw the desperation in Pika's face, and the midwife said, "Perhaps the visitor was right. Let's move her to the stable." So the women assisted Pika in rising from her bed covered with silk sheets. They led her carefully down the long, dark alley to the little narrow stable. And there, in the empty stall of Pietro's horse, Pika gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. When the child was laid in her arms, Pika heard in her heart the words of Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist. "And you, child, will be called Prophet of the Most High, for you will go before the Lord to prepare his ways, to give knowledge of salvation to his people, by the forgiveness of their sins." After Pika had returned to her own bed and was recovering, one night a beggar came to the house looking for charity. The cook gave the beggar a piece of chicken breast left over from Pika's dinner. The man eagerly devoured the food, but did not appear to be satisfied with it. "That's all for you tonight. Now be gone," said the cook. "Oh, I want no more food," said the man. "My eyes hunger to see the baby." "How did you know there was a baby in this house?" "Please, bring me the boy that I might see him." "How did you know the baby was a boy?" "Please, bring the child. I must see him." "Wait a minute," said the cook. He disappeared, and a little while later returned with the midwife, who held up the child for the beggar to see. "May I hold him?" The midwife looked at the cook, and then carefully placed the baby into the beggar's arms. The beggar gazed at the child for a long moment, and then held him close to his heart and said, "Today in this neighborhood, 2 baby boys were born. One will be among the best of men, the other among the most evil." And then he gave the child back to the midwife and disappeared into the night. The day for the baby's baptism came, and still Pietro had not returned from the fair. So with the aid of some neighbors, Pika brought the child to the cathedral in San Rufino for the baptism. While the priest prepared for the sacred rite, Pika snuggled the baby to her breast and sang a lullaby. Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, sonne les matines, din dan dong, din dan dong. Pika looked up and was startled. when she saw the mysterious visitor who had been at her door the night before she went into labor. The man smiled at her and said, "Oh, may I hold your child?" The smile on the man's face dispelled Pika's fear, and he placed the baby into his arms. The man gazed at the child, put his hand on the baby's head, blessed him, and then returned him to his mother. Now when the priest asked Pika, "What name will you give this child?" Pika heard in her heart the words of Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist. "And you, child, will be called prophet of the Most High, for you will go before the Lord to prepare his way, to give knowledge of salvation to his people by the forgiveness of their sins." Pika smiled at the priest and said, "I will name him Jean, Giovanni, in honor of John the Baptist." And so, the baby was named Jean. Immediately after the ceremony, the mysterious visitor who had blessed the child knelt on the top step of the altar. And when he arose, there was a miraculous print left in the stone, a print that can be seen there to this very day. And then he disappeared. A few days later, Pietro returned from the fair, anxious to see his new baby. When Pika placed the baby in his arms, Pietro's face lit up. "Oh, it's a boy! He can work in the shop and learn the trade. Pika, what did you name him?" "I named him Jean, Giovanni, after John the Baptist." "You named him Jean after John the Baptist? No child of mine is going to be named after a desert hermit who wore sackcloth, drank from a river, and ate locusts and wild honey. What kind of a future could a boy named after such a man possibly have? I will not have a child named Jean." "Then what would you name him?" asked Pika with tears in her eyes. Pietro cast about in his mind for a name fitting for the son of a cloth merchant, hopefully destined for nobility. I will name him Francesco, for France is where I will make my fortune." And so, Giovanni's name was changed to Francesco by his father. But in his mother's heart, he would always be Jean. There was a man sent from God whose name was Francis. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light.